Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're really excited to see so many faces on the call. Well, not faces, I see names mostly, but thank you for joining us. My name is Tanya Loa. I'm the Communications Coordinator for the UF Office of Sustainability. And tonight we have our next in our student conversation series, just focused on careers and sustainability. We have three amazing panelists with us tonight that all have different varying careers in the sustainability field. And actually, we're all interns with the Office of Sustainability at UF at one point. So that's pretty cool. And this series is led by our current student interns. So I'm going to hand this over to Astrid, Alexis, and Natalia to kick it off for us tonight.
Perfect. Hello, my name is Alexis. I am one of the Communications and Outreach interns with the UF Office of Sustainability. Just to kind of highlight the structure of the program, and then I'll hand it over to Astrid and Natalia to introduce themselves. I am going to kind of run through what our goals were with this program tonight, and just to introduce students to different varieties of fields in sustainability. Astrid and I will be going back and forth, as well as Natalia, with asking a few questions. And we will kind of get to know all of the panelists and hopefully introduce some new fields to students that are listening to us. But my personal interest is in global and environmental health, so that's kind of where I stand in sustainability. But I'll toss it to Astrid to introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thank you again to our panelists for taking the time out of their day to do this. My name's Astrid. I'm a marketing major and I'm an outreach and communications intern here. And my sustainability interests lie in the politics of sustainability and how our legislation affects sustainability. So yeah, now I'll pass it off to Natalia.
Hi, everyone. I'm really sorry, but I'm unable to have my camera on right now. I'm also a communications and outreach intern, and my specific passion is sustainability communications, and I'm also a fourth year.
Great. Okay, so before we begin, a set of questions that we've prepared for you all. We were hoping that our guest speakers would be able to introduce themselves. So just as we go around, if you could please introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, your major that you pursued in undergrad, and briefly describe how you got to where you are today. If anybody would like to go first, or if not, we can just kind of rotate through.
I volunteer as tribute. Let's do it. Hi, I'm Mary Vasilevsky. I'm the Sustainable Development Coordinator at Florida Green Construction over on the Northeast coast. So about 2 hours east of UF if you're on campus. And I do a lot of different things in regards to mainly like green marketing, learning about construction, and I love the topic of indoor air quality. The company builds, we do certified green home. A lot of people have heard of LEED. I'm sure if you're in sustainability, you've heard of LEED. I see nods. All right, we're good. You wouldn't believe how many people I have to explain that to who want to build homes and stuff. So this is refreshing. Thank you. We do Florida specific. So contextually, we do like the Florida version of LEED, the Florida Green Building Coalition, just because their stuff is really focused on moisture prevention, disaster resilience, mold. So things that really matter for Florida because we're hot almost all year long. And I started at UF. My bachelor's was in environmental science, so a BS from SNRE, and then my master's was in sustainable development. So like if you guys have seen Fiona, she's somewhere on here. So my research was in the Middle East for environmental peace building. So sustainability is very broad. And I think that was the first question, right? All right.
Yes, perfect, thank you. And then anybody else want to go second, or if not, Carson, you could start.
Sure, I'll go. I'm Carson Cooper. My pronouns are she, her. I am currently a research analyst for the Greater Nashville Regional Council, which sounds really fancy, but it's the regional government entity. So we oversee the entire Nashville region, which is about 14 counties. We're a federally designated metropolitan planning organization. So we're charged with kind of distributing federal transportation funds to our region and like local jurisdiction projects. We act as a liaison between the state and local governments. And we also contribute to economic development, housing policies, and lots of general urban planning fun things. But at UF, I was an outreach and engagement intern with the office for 2.5 years, year and year. My major was natural resource conservation within the forestry department. So it was very ecology based. And I got more into the like urban side of things in that degree, and then ultimately went on and got a master's in urban planning at Georgia Tech. So that's kind of how I've gotten to here. So I'm not like directly in a sustainability field. My title isn't, my direct work isn't always your traditional thought of sustainability, but because our organization is so holistic and works across the region, it's pretty much a part of my daily life. Monica.
Yeah, similar on Carson's note, my job is a little bit further from sustainability. So I am Monica Humphreys. My pronouns are she, her, and currently I'm a reporter at the digital media company Insider. And so I cover travel, I cover alternative living, which is a lot of like different ways people are living these days, whether that's tiny homes, out of vans, a lot of nomad living, earth ships, all of that fun stuff. But at UF, I was a journalism major and I minored in sustainability. So that's kind of how this all started. And after college, I had an internship, and then I spent a year at a startup covering solutions journalism. So that was a little bit more sustainability focused. So I was covering the organizations, the nonprofits, the grassroots groups, researchers, scientists. So people who were really like trying to solve problems in their communities. And of course, a lot of problems revolve around sustainability. So that kind of was a little bit more sustainability focused. So you'll probably hear me referring to that a lot throughout this call today.
Amazing. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And now we are going to transition in some of the questions that Astrid, Natalia, and I have prepared for you all. So to kind of kick it off and touch a little bit on something that both Monica and Carson, you both mentioned, was how sustainability, can look different in a lot of different fields. So starting in the same order with Mary, what are some of the unique aspects of your specific field or industry within sustainability? And if you're able to speak on some of those specifics, like what isn't involved in the position that you currently hold?
Okay. So I guess I'll start with the field in general. So green building is one of the reasons why I like the field is that housing is intersectional, same as environment, same as a lot of issues that we have, environmental justice, racism, feminism, everything is very intersectional, and housing is kind of the physical manifestation of that. So who has access to housing and what kind of quality housing are people able to access? And how do you make quality housing accessible to as many people as possible? A lot of people don't realize that each home is really built differently and how long it lasts, and that contextually it should be different in many ways. Like you're not going to put a solar panel on the east coast of Florida where a hurricane can knock it off, but maybe you can do another form of alternative energy. So things like that we don't really think of when we are living in a house. For example, I don't like economic measurements of health, but I'll use it for this. I think it was like $63 billion of costs were dedicated to consequences of unhealthy housing for the workforce. So people don't realize that the quality of air in your home is actually that can make you sick. And so when you're living in an older home where you don't have repairs, where things are broken, things aren't replaced, that actually negatively impacts the health outcomes of many communities, and some more than others disproportionately. So this part of like where green building is it has a tangible impact. And actually that's how I came into the field. When I actually lived in a green home And I stopped getting sick. Fiona was a grad student with me, so she remembers how much I got sick when we were doing our program together. And then when I lived in like healthy air quality, I stopped getting sick, and I was like, oh, green building is actually like a thing. Like, it's important. It's not just energy efficiency, it's quality of life. And so when you think of the impact you can have, a lot of these quality homes are really only accessible to people who have either built homes already, who were afforded to build homes are in that group, and people who know a little bit more about construction, which is usually someone who either has a lot of free times or is in the industry, of course, or someone who is able to say, okay, I have this money, this is what I want, this is what I'm okay with. But the everyday person doesn't have that. We're just trying to work. We're going like, was it 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are? You go home, you sleep. You don't really think about that. You don't have the luxury of time to think about that. So how do you make green building accessible financially to people of different economic groups? And that's what this company does. We have different homes that we build, like no matter, like the smallest home that we build is a 2-bedroom, and then we build like 3-story hurricane proof homes on the beach. So we can build anything, but no matter what size the home is, every single home has 6 certifications, environmental certifications. Florida Green Building Coalition, the EPA Energy Star, which that's a national one, people are familiar with that. The EPA also has like an indoor air quality one, the Indoor Air Plus. That is a non-negotiable certification, along with other ones that we do. We also do disability accessible homes as well. So that's another certification that some of our homes have, depending on who orders it. So with housing, you can actually affect people, and you can get all of that in a 2-bedroom, a small 2-bedroom home, or anything else. Like, that's not going to change. And that's what I love about our job. My job, it does intersect with science communication. So I think Astrid and Natalie, you guys are, no, Astrid, Astrid, you're in communications, right? Alexis is in environmental global health. Yeah, science communication, sustainability communication is one of the most important things at the job. The founder of this company is an immigrant, came here, and he was able to market, even with an accent, even with everything, where Americans are able to understand the quality of it. And he uses keywords, not necessarily these big scientific words that we are taught to use in our degrees. I actually had to unlearn how to write like an academic when I started my job. So if you hate academic writing, have hope. It gets better. So there's so much more I would love to talk to you guys about, but I am trying to also be mindful of other speakers.
I guess I'll go next. Urban planning, if you don't know about it as a field, is like extremely broad. It can be around housing, it can be zoning, environmental design, transportation is a huge part of it as well. So, and also just like planning for people and being a community advocate. So everybody has like a different path on how they get into urban planning and why they want to be in it. So I'm a very big picture person, which I think sustainability is also very big picture, as we keep talking about. And within my field, you can specialize into one of those categories, but you're expected ultimately to work with all the other specializations and realize that nexus of intersectional connections and how they all impact one another. And in general, I mean, sustainability is planning for the needs of the future. Urban planning is always planning. We often make really long-term plans out 25 years out. We just did the regional transportation plan for 2045. And my specific job is very data-driven. I'm a research analyst. So I work mainly with demographic data. And I really enjoy doing that because I can bring in more of the social equity component. I feel like often we hear sustainability and then it's a solely environmental conversation, which is not a problem. We always obviously care about the environment, but I really like that my field and my position have afforded me the opportunity to be more involved in the social and economic impacts as well. but I hope that kind of summed it up about urban planning and sustainability.
Yeah, so when it comes to media, I feel like it's just such a wide range of things. So I think you can look at it, especially when it comes to journalism, like into different categories when it comes to sustainability. So you have like the writers who are solely focused on their topic or their beat. And a lot of that times there are those like categories of sustainability that like fall into that. So whether that you're an agricultural journalist, you're focused on climate change, like whatever that job looks like, a lot of the times you have that built-in population of readers who are already interested. And you have this group who's going to click into your stories because they're focused on those like sustainability aspects or those sustainability topics. But then the flip side of that is a job like mine currently, where I don't have that built-in audience that's super passionate about sustainability as like a term. And so it's more kind of learning to hide sustainability to them, if that makes sense, or to like embed sustainability in my stories. And I picked up a lot of those skills from my internship at the Office of Sustainability, which was like convincing people why this matters and informing them. So kind of to Mary's point, like learning to unlearn those scientific terms, learning to create write conversationally, so your audience is leaving informed and feeling confident about what they just learned or about what they just read. So I think when it comes to at least journalism, like sustainability falls into that two categories, where sometimes you have this audience who's already interested. And then sometimes you're like convincing the audience to be interested and showing them like why they should care or why they do care already. They just haven't identified it.
Awesome. Thanks for all your answers. And on that note, we wanted to ask specifically, what things did you learn in your internship at the Office of Sustainability that added to your undergrad experience? And how did you like take those lessons into the jobs you have today? And we could do the same order again.
Yeah, so I actually started as an intern for the Athletics Association when UF was doing their zero waste stuff. I was in charge of diverting waste on game days, which seems like it's not a big deal, but the stadium holds 110,000 people on game days, which is bigger than the city I'm living. The city I'm living has like 90,000 people, and the stadium becomes essentially bigger than where I'm at. So when the program got pushed after other things into the Office of Sustainability, and so I was able to participate with the Tailgater program and do the stadium one where I got to divert zero waste and work with a lot of great people there. And the skills that you learn with the Office of Sustainability, I'm going to keep it less generic than they definitely helped me with my career. But tangibly, project management and collaboration, you learn the Office of Sustainability is like a hub. It's almost like a small business where everyone wears many hats, and you need to know how to work together as a team, but be able to work independently and build that communication. One of the most important things I learned when working on, especially on game days, when your other interns are out and about all over campus, which is apparently you really get to know that it's one of the biggest campuses in all of the US when you have to walk from one end to the other within 15 minutes, which is impossible. Thank you for the electric bike, whoever pushed for that. That helped. But communicating urgently, like if something goes wrong, which something always goes wrong, being able to have that go to like and be quick on your feet and problem solve, get creative. So that was a big skill at the Project of Sustainability. Like I knew if there was something that wasn't going on, I'm just like, hey, this didn't happen, need help now, let's do it. And then, so instead of like trying, how sometimes when you have a problem, you're like, oh, I can maybe solve it myself. There's a time and place for that. Another one that I learned is like rallying the people who don't care. That was the biggest perk of the tailgater program. You work in the heat, a lot of drunk people are there tailgating. And so how do you get people excited about recycling stuff when they clearly don't want to recycle? So those skills of communication, getting people hyped up. So I'm an extrovert, so I'm naturally like this, but I saw a lot of like the interns that I worked with and volunteers. How do you get introverts to do something similar, and seeing them not want to do it, but coaching them and working with them to get introverts who have never done this before. Some of them are 18, have never really talked to a stranger. Like, how do you use the skills to encourage them to open up and to partake in this lively event and to not feel overwhelmed? And definitely motivating people is a skill that I use all the time. Like, most of our clients that I work with don't care about the environment. They don't care about sustainability. They're like, if you had to paint like the typical client, they're there for different reasons. So how do you use your communication skills to appeal to their values? And so that is the biggest skills, because more people care than you think. When I was in sustainability, we were all around each other, but we all had this hopeless feeling of, oh my God, look at what's going on in politics. No one cares. But then when you appeal to the people's values individually, a lot of people do care, and you can help them learn to care. So yeah, I still use these skills every single day.
I'm just going to echo a lot of what Mary said, but my experience interning for the office obviously gave me a lot of friends. Still talk to a lot of the interns that I worked with, and it was just great to be around like-minded people, the staff at the office as well. But I was an outreach intern specifically doing the sustainability hut, like the tabling around campus multiple times a week. We also did events and other things, but that directly set me up for my career, because public engagement activities through the government end up just being on a tabling with a poster and informing and engaging, giveaways, trying to get people to participate or sign up on a sheet for something. That is the direct experience of public engagement that I have now and have to do at work. So that was a major skill I gained, echoing what Mary said about appealing to people's values, or like learning how to educate people without talking down to them. Or, just a lot of those like nuanced interpersonal skills that you're going to use in your career anytime you're working with a client, with the public, or just with your team. It's so basic in our minds when we say communication, but it is really nuanced when you're like, are you the expert? Well, I'm also in this opportunity to learn from the person I'm talking about this with. Like, are they the local expert? What can I learn from them? And really just like kind of a shared experience takeaway. And even that can happen in like a small interaction where someone played the recycling game, or a very long interaction where they were at our table all day. So really enjoyed that. And I think the office also taught me just more about global sustainability. When I was an intern there, we had weekly meetings that were like an hour, and we would have presentations and discussions with each other about global sustainability topics. So, just knowledge-wise, it taught me a lot more about different topics of sustainability that I hadn't thought about as traditionally sustainability before. So great experience working for the office, and definitely use all those skills now.
Yeah, I feel like Mary and Carson both said it great. Definitely. It's really, I think the biggest benefit of being in the office was that community that we were in, and like being surrounded again by like-minded people, and being, especially as somebody who was a journalism major who often wasn't in sustainability focused friend groups or in sustainability focused classes, it was nice to have like this group to come to where like they were challenging me and encouraging me, which was really nice. And then I think kind of what we've all said is then knowing that we're passionate, taking that step back and convincing others to be passionate or find their passion, and a little more tangible. I think we all had the chance to do that in person. And then especially as a communications intern, I did a lot of that through social media, through organizing online events, and learning how to communicate through like these online communities, which I think even more today as what we're doing right now is important. So understanding like what works and what doesn't work, and really just like building online groups, if that makes sense.
Thank you all so much. As a current intern, I hear all of your your pieces of information and stuff, and I find those skills in myself, and I realize specifically what you said, Mary, about the office functioning a bit like a small business, and that we all have to wear many hats. That's extremely relatable. And it's a really great aspect of the internship is teaching you how to work together, how to develop those interpersonal skills, but also how to handle tasks on your own. And related to that, I was wondering if you all could talk to any specific aspects of the internship that really inspired you to pursue a career in sustainability. I know we talked about the skills and the things that you've learned, but if there was any reflections or anything specific that solidified your interest in pursuing the careers that you're at now.
So I did, when we were talking, I kind of COVID times, I don't know if the office is operating in person right now or if you guys are working from home. So I was actually one of the interns who never worked in the office because my internship was very on my feet, doing it from just wherever I was. A lot of the skills I got to use were program and project management. All right, what groups of students are we going to try to engage? How do we move these pieces together? So I really didn't need to be in the office. And so I didn't communicate one-on-one with people to the extent, but even with that, and I feel this is pertinent to COVID time, I didn't need to do that for what I was doing. I still had that sense of community, even with me working remotely with even 2018, 2017, 18, 19, something like that. So not 2017, 18. Yeah, you could still get that aspect of community without being physically in the office. And I feel like that definitely prepared me for COVID time. And when you're working remotely, communication styles are different. You're always on your phone, you're always on your computer. I mean, I wasn't before, but now I was just doing it with a purpose. But there's a lot of similarities that I share with Carson and with Monica. One of the things that Monica said, you don't actually have to be in sustainability to make an impact on sustainability. I had to learn digital marketing. I'm no guru at all, but I'm good at some stuff. I learned social media marketing, communication education, how to put a lesson together, how to manage and organize a project with an Excel sheet. So there are definitely a lot of stuff that you can learn with it and things that I still use every day. But definitely if you're passionate about certain skills, there are courses online, how to use your phone for digital marketing and for photography and videography. Find that course online. It's free. Do it because you don't need, there are so many ways you can get skills to find the skills that you like to do and have your mission and use your skills for your mission. So you don't have to know everything about environmental science or sustainability to make a good impact. And the field is more accessible. You're going to learn along the way. And there's so many aspects. And I know this is cheesy if it's still a course, facets of sustainability. Is that still a thing? Yeah, well, literally, there are so many facets of sustainability. It's just pick the thing, pick your skills, you'll learn along the way.
Yeah, I think with our generation, it's kind of hard not to pursue a career in sustainability because it's all related. I mean, unless you're literally hurting people, you're contributing to sustainability in some way. I think my major at UF was so ecology, environmental, conservation based that I really got caught up in that. But I appreciated my experience with the office because I think it's part of what led me to pursue my master's in my field now is much more human environment interactions, policy implications, economic motives, instead of just being so gung-ho for the environment, which I still am on my inside, not everybody's going to talk to me if I'm just a tree hugger. So I have like adapted, and I think that the office was a big piece of me becoming more social equity focused in my career and my sustainability work, especially now, because while the environment is such a big part of urban planning, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be more human focused and more anthropogenic, human focused. But we're planning for people, and then we're going to try and adapt the environment or conserve as much as we can to help people. So, we all want to help people. We all want to save the environment. So I think as long as you keep that passion within you, you're always going to find a career that you can like find that in, especially nowadays.
Yeah, I think that human angle is like really what's like inspired me from moving from like the Office of Sustainability into a full-time reporter job. Was while I was at the Office of Sustainability, I had like the chance to talk to people on the ground, and I had the chance to talk to professors, to students, to like everybody in between, faculty and staff, and watch them light up about sustainability. And like I was like, oh yes, people care about this. Like the cool thing about being in communications is that they're letting you, and they're like giving you the privilege to share their stories sometimes. And so having that ability, whether it was through a simple Instagram post, whether it was through like a blog post, and finding what those people who like really were excited and who lit up naturally about it, like finding that really inspired me. But then also talking to people who like maybe didn't care as much, and then like honing in on what did light them up. So like I remember one time, I think like the UFPD had started some, like their motorcycles went electric, and I went over and talked to one of like the electric motorcyclist, like UFPD officers. And he was like, why are you talking to me? Like, I was given this thing to drive. Like, what do you want to know? And then we just like talked for like 20 minutes, and I found out he like was super excited about just like motorcycles in general, and we had like a really good conversation. And like I think we left that conversation informing each other. I think Carson mentioned that earlier, where like the people you're talking to, you can learn as much from as like you can also teach them. So yeah, so I think like those really small interactions helped like inspire me to like continue to do something relatively sustainability adjacent. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So you guys touched on this a little bit, each one of you, but for everybody in the chat, I bet not everyone here right now has their like foot in some type of sustainability like program or major or internship. So what advice do you have to the people on this call too, who are incredibly passionate about sustainability and want a job in sustainability or something like that down the line? How can they get started? How can they build their resume to like show that they are passionate and they have the skills to work in sustainability?
I guess if we're gonna go in order, there are a lot of different things about sustainability. I would say, just like from a practical standpoint, list out what your current skills are, strengths and weaknesses. Instead of weaknesses, let's call them areas of opportunities, because you can always make them strengths. At least that's how you should present it in an interview. There you go, your first lesson for free. So like, what skills do you know that you're good at? What skills do you think you want to improve? Do you want to improve at? And then what skills do you definitely need to improve and just not strengths at all? And intersect it with what your mission is. Like, what do you want to see in the world? I mean, of course, we want world peace and the end of all horrible things, but make it very small. And then kind of see, like, there's so many ways you can make your field sustainable. Like, I'm in building, like construction, which like, I did not think that could be sustainable at all when I started, and look where I am now. But also, one of the things that I guess I should say more than anything before you do your strengths and weaknesses, I think like a lot of undergrads and a lot of grad students have felt this and said this, like sometimes it feels like we're not good at anything and that we're always like failing and we're always procrastinating, and that's like, and it gets to you over time, even if you don't think it. But learn how to see past that, learn how to like build self-confidence and self-efficacy. Because when you don't have the self-confidence to say like, okay, I don't know this yet, but there's always a yet, like you will, like there are things you're good at, even if you don't feel like you're good at it, even if academia has bullied it out of you, because that's what academia does. But just like learn to build self-confidence and self-efficacy. That's all.
I kind of mentioned this before, that it's hard to find a career not in sustainability. So for anyone interested in getting really, really into sustainability, there's just probably a way for you to advocate for yourself in your job. So my traditional job scope is just data analyst, and that doesn't sound very sustainability minded. And a lot of my work is assigned to me, but it's because data can always tell a story. It's kind of like the data is what it is. How do we use it? I often, lean it towards sustainability. Like I regularly deal with demographic data and where people live and who lives there. Are they disabled? Are they a person of color? And are we doing something that's going to negatively impact them? Why do we need to care about bridging the, institutional racism gaps? And how do I communicate that in Tennessee? So there's always like nuanced ways for you to advocate for yourself or kind of gear your work towards a sustainable message. And you'll find in your career that you're either in a workplace that will support you doing that because you're still doing your job and you're doing it in a way that fulfills you, or you're in a workplace that doesn't support you doing that, and then you get a different job. Because you want to work somewhere where you're happy and you're fulfilled. Skills wise, I'm very much a data person. I'm in a data position, but I would say personally in sustainability, it can often be data driven when you're talking about climate change or economic impacts, environmental damage, any kind of thing. There's always metrics associated with that. So even if you're not a math data person, you want to be able to read and understand or research data, be able to talk about data. So I think garnering some data skills while you're in classes at UF, even if it's just kind of a research project or a thesis or whatever, and incorporating data into that so you can get those skills will definitely contribute to a career in sustainability, in my experience.
Yeah, I think my advice is a little, I don't know what the word is, a little less tangible, but I think the coolest thing about sustainability, or it is tangible, but the coolest thing about sustainability is people are so passionate about it, and you should take advantage of that, especially now as like a college student, or if you're a college student, or I mean, even as an adult, like no matter who you are, send cold emails and like ask them about their jobs and just like connect with people. From my experience in journalism, the people who are the most excited have been the people who are working around our world and who are focused on sustainability. And when they pick up the phone, they are so eager to talk to me and they are so like willing to spend the time. And I think like the funny part is like they didn't care where I was working for. Like I worked at a no-name startup for a little bit, like I worked where like a lot of people hadn't heard of, and that didn't matter to them. They just cared that they had like open ears to talk, like to listen. And so I think like take advantage of that now. Send emails, use an excuse, pretend it's for a class assignment, like whatever you want to do, just like find people that interest you, connect with them. And then I think that'll also eventually lead to jobs where like the next time they have an open position, the next time they have a thing that they need volunteers for, before they post it on Facebook, before they tweet it out, they're going to think of their own community and they're going to think of the people they're already like connected with. And you're going to be at the front of that person's mind. So like, I feel like I was told that sometimes in college and I was like, well, that's like really scary. I hate networking. And I think like, just do it once and then you'll like realize how it's like, I mean, it's still a little scary, but it's like not as scary as like you make it to be, I think. And so, yeah, so like now while you're like trying to figure out what you want to do, go talk to a bunch of people in different positions and learn more about all of those different roles.
Amazing. Thank you all for all of the advice and information. I know a lot of students on the call are definitely looking for that, given the COVID circumstances and how we've all had to adjust our semesters a little bit to UF's current status. But now we wanted to take a pause and open up the discussion for any questions from the audience. If anybody on the call has questions for Mary, Carson, or Monica, you can go ahead and take those now.
Don't be shy. You can unmute yourself or turn on your camera or drop your question in the chat. If you don't want to say it out loud, we can ask as well. Oh, looks like we do have some.
We were all in your shoes because we were all UF students.
Looks like we have a question in the chat. Since the field is so broad, how do you recommend figuring out which area you want to pursue? How did you determine what you wanted to do? And this is open to anyone. I feel like Mary mentioned this a little bit. Anyone else wants to jump in?
I love my job because I never had to pick what I wanted to do. I think the beauty of like being in communications is you get to talk to a lot of people in a lot of different places, especially in my current role. But I think as you, again, talk to more people, as you build your network, as you like grow through internships and through volunteer opportunities, I think you slowly learn what you like navigate towards or what you like naturally like pivot to. So I would say like if you're scrolling through events and one catches your eye or like volunteer opportunities, like again, like take a step back and think about why did I pick this one? Like, why did I apply to this? And maybe try and like hone that in a little bit more and then like see what other opportunities are there for like within that specific interest, if that makes sense.
I'll echo, I didn't really have to pick. Urban planning is so broad. So I picked it on purpose. I mean, I got a specialized degree in something that's not specialized. And part of that for me was I was intimidated because I was so interested in so many things. And I was like, these all affect this and this is like, you know, this impacts that and they work together and I don't know how to specialize in one or study one. So I picked the thing that has all of them in it, and it impacts all aspects of sustainability. I'll never get bored. I can specialize in one part and then pivot and go into another thing. So that was the main reason I picked it. I also in general just have like a really like fascination with cities, how they develop and development. So that was kind of like an easier avenue into urban planning specifically. But I mean, if you just have a general interest in people, like you're going to find it in anything you do. So my biggest advice would definitely be to try things. Like there's no harm in taking an elective that's a little outside your major if it's something you're interested in. I definitely did that and got me to where I am today. I was in the forestry department and I was taking classes in anthropology, but I was really interested in it. So there's an opportunity to figure out what you want to do through classes, through internships, and in general, finding your niche in the field of sustainability or not finding your niche and just picking a field that has them all.
One of the things that I recommend for some people is like, because you're absolutely right, this entire field is so broad. If you've heard, and I think it's Hannah who asked the question, if you've heard about the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN, a lot of people have. And before I get into the UN and Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17 of them in different aspects of sustainability. from life on water or in water, life on land, to justice, to building strong institutions, feminine or gender. There's a lot of different stuff in there. I would just like a quick activity that I would do, go look up the picture and circle the ones that just appeal to your eye and cross out the ones you do. Because there are so many fields of sustainability that illustrates 17 of them. And now you can rule out what you know you're not interested in. So I'm terrible at wildlife. I understand its importance, I really do. But you would not, like, I'd rather mess with soil. I love soil, but you can't have me, like, someone barely got me to touch one of those insects at the UF events and I almost vomited, but I didn't. But at least like you can narrow it down, and there are resources to help you pinpoint which fields you should at least look at. And I can find the link and put it in the chat. Just look at the sustainable development goals, cross out the ones that you don't like, and then also just kind of look for jobs within those areas.
I love that advice. I feel like that's such like a good tip if you like don't even know where to start. Like just crossing off what you like definitely don't like is seems so brilliant. I wish somebody told me that like 4 years ago.
I'm someone who likes everything, and I don't like, almost I never know what I want, but I know what I don't want.
Right.
And advice is never given the other way around. Like this, like it's given the other way around. There you go. So yeah, this is what helped me, just like, I don't want this, I don't want that. And it's like, well, what do I want? Well, here you go.
That was really helpful. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for everything you guys said. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that because I do like a lot of things too. So thank you.
On a similar note, there are a few questions I'm going to combine into one question, talking about how, after you choose your interest, is it necessary to get a graduate degree, like to advance in those types of positions? Or would any of you like to elaborate on, do you recommend higher education or any post-grad programs as you're trying to further your career?
I can speak to this because I have a master's degree. I don't know if the other two do or don't, but and I went to grad school straight from undergrad, right out of UF, so I was just more student. For me, I was kind of pivoting my field because my undergrad was so like land management and like field work based. So when I wanted to get more into urban environments, people focused, I definitely had more knowledge and skills to gain in grad school. But I will say in urban planning, it is pretty expected for you to eventually get your graduate degree. It's not required out the gate, but like several of my coworkers don't have master's degrees and we're, at the same level. They just worked longer than I did, but they have the intent of going back to school. So in urban planning in general, because most of the national accreditations for that professional kind of curriculum are at the graduate level. It's pretty expected for you to get a graduate level degree, and especially if you're going to be in a bigger city like San Francisco or New York, you're definitely going to want that master's degree to be more competitive. In Nashville, it definitely helped to have it.
I have mixed feelings. So I graduated, I went back for my master's. I went like almost straight out of college, not quite, but it was still within the year that I graduated my master's. So yeah, I do have mixed feelings. I really think it depends on your field. Like if you want to do environmental stuff for the state of Florida, I recommend go straight to work. Don't do grad school, because if you want to start with them, they'll pay for it. The reasons I say this is because a lot of my friends who, sorry, just gonna clean that up. I'm at the office, no big deal. Call them back. But for example, a lot of my friends who are in the environmental field working for the state, a lot of them wish that they didn't do their master's first because they still had to start out at the same level and with the same amount of pay, and then they could have gotten their master's paid for by the state 2 classes at a time. My field, I'm really happy that I did get my master's because it taught me how to work with like public, like our degree was definitely intersectional. I got some public health stuff, which helped me when reading the research papers on indoor air quality and how that impacts you. But if you're doing like, if you want to get your foot in the door and work, because not everyone has the ability to go into debt right out of, like, I got into so much debt. I went right in. I wish I would have taken some time, found myself a graduate assistantship because I'm living for bills. Well, kind of. Yeah. So it's not a bad thing if you don't go to school right away, because if you find yourself a job or something where you have the ability to do that first and then decide on your passion, do that. But I don't think it's necessary to get a graduate degree, depending on what you're doing. Like Carson's case, yeah, definitely get that degree. If you're doing research, if you want to do like lab work and environmental research, soil research, get your degree, get your master's, water research, anything that requires like a lot of technical stuff. It definitely is benefit, but you can always go back for your degree and go back with an assistantship and not a wallet full of debt.
Yeah, kind of similar advice, especially for journalism. What I was told in college, and I still stand by this, is like, as a journalist, you get the best experience by being a journalist and by being a reporter. So if you're looking to like go into that field, I would just go into it after undergrad. I think if you're looking to do something really specific, kind of to what Mary was saying, where like, you really want to hone in on like one specific topic within journalism, and if you really want to own that beat, whether it's the ocean, well, the oceans is like a huge topic, but like, you know, like if you have something that really interests you, I would say consider a master's, maybe try out journalism for a little bit, see how it goes. Because like you can always go back, but that was like the experience I was given. I didn't do a master's program. I every now and then think about it, and I would only go back, but I would probably get a master's in some field of science instead of journalism. So yeah. Oh, so I guess my like asterisk is, you know, I would, from what I've heard and from my personal experience, I would not recommend a graduate school within like the field of journalism. But I'm young. I don't really know that much. That's just like what I've heard. And it's worked for me so far.
If you want to do policy, definitely like grad school is a great opportunity to network with professionals. I had the opportunity after I finished grad school where one of my committee members wanted to help me get into like a certain direction policy wise, but I ended up personally choosing not to do it, but I did have my foot in the door and that was nice. But it didn't align with what I valued. And I knew I would be miserable in the job. Just like you could not get me to do an engineer's job, I would cry. But, you know, don't force yourself to be technical when you don't need to be. Like I got a bachelor's of science, and I had to slave over physics too and other things, things that just really were a waste of my time. I could have taken other communications oriented stuff because no one really looks at whether, they're like, environmental science. They don't really care in my field specifically, if I had a BS or a BA. And so just accepting certain things about yourself, like what you like to do. Like I make things explode in a chemistry lab. So you won't find me in one unless they want a demolition. So.
Great. Again, building off of that conversation, also combining a few questions here for time's sake. Addressing the idea that sustainability is a career path that is growing and developing right now. What are some of the key skills you think help make you more competitive when it comes to applying? And also, is having scientific knowledge one of those skills that you consider to be fairly important in a lot of communication fields, or what are your thoughts on that?
Some level, so science is important. Having scientific knowledge is important, but having the ability to understand science is more important. Like you feel just having the ability to keep learning is what I think is more important, because environmental, like science is so broad, whether it's physics or engineering or chemistry, biology, it really, like at that point, you keep an open mind and have the ability to learn more than anything, because you're never going to learn everything you need to know for a job. and every field is so different. You can know everything in the world about water quality, but you don't know how it affects soil. So that's something that you're going to have to learn. So just have the ability to learn. And if something says like must have knowledge of XYZ, don't let that deter you.
Yeah, I mentioned this before that some data skills are definitely going to make you more competitive. I'm sure you're all tech savvy enough to know your way around an Excel sheet, but like Mary said, you need to be able to talk about the data that you're either collecting or researching that someone else collected. It's definitely helpful because so much of sustainability discussions are data driven. And it doesn't have to be, fancy climate models. It can be as simple as census data, as like my data usually is, but having the knowledge to talk about it and use it in a way that is beneficial to your organization or company is definitely a skill. Obviously, software skills. I mean, I don't want to plug STEM too much, but those are always going to make you more competitive, even if it's not that related to your job, but it's something that you can enhance your value to the organization because it's one less person they have to hire. So in general, like having kind of being a little bit of a jack of all trades, or at least conversationalist of all trades. I think to plug grad school again, that's something I learned in my graduate degree, at least in urban planning, because it's talking about all the issues and how they connect and how you plan for all of them at the same time. While I'm not a specialist in housing or HUD or the federal programs, I can have a conversation about it. So that's been a really big part of my career, and building a network is, I know this much about this, let's talk about that. That's always going to be a skill. So if you just can gain as much knowledge as you can and be a learner, it'll help and make you more competitive.
Wonderful. I love hearing more about all of the skills that you guys have developed, not just through the internship with the Office of Sustainability, but also through your own programs and post-grad programs and your jobs now. I find this really inspiring. Coming from an architecture degree, I'm now in the field of communications sustainability, so I definitely have the same kind of path of moving towards different things and what I'm passionate about. And I know our interns tonight were really excited to talk to you all as well. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I know we have a few more questions in the chat, but it looks like we're running out of time right now. So I just wanted to quickly mention that if you weren't aware, shameless plug here, the Office of Sustainability is hiring interns for the summer and fall. I dropped the application in the chat there. If you know anyone that's interested, please pass it along. And to follow up, we will be sending out a recording of this to all of the registrants afterwards. And please feel free to let us know, reach out to our office or through our social media channels if you have more questions for me, for our office, or for our wonderful interns. Thank you, Alexis, Astrid, and Natalia for putting together such an amazing event. And thank you, Mary, Monica, and Carson for being here tonight. This was so wonderful.
Thank you guys for organizing.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a great night. Thank you, everyone. I see all the thank yous coming in the chat. Bye-bye.
Hi, Matt. Bye, Matt.